Steve Reeder, who was at the symposium and a co-author on the report, Changing the Odds, talks about a broken ladder of opportunity in this country, that we've failed to support people to get onto the ladder even. The bottom rungs are broken. Well, the Workforce Investment Act is currently in committee still in the Senate and the House being written. It has not been reauthorized for 7 years, so everyone's anxious to get it rewritten. It's the primary funding vehicle for adult education and workforce development. But everyone who's advocating for its reauthorization, the advocacy groups and the consumers and stakeholders themselves, are asking for a much tighter alignment between what's called Title I and Title II. So that's Department of Labor, Workforce Development Programs, and the Department of Ed, Adult Education and Training Programs. That alignment is critical so that adults can work on their skills, their basic skills, along with improving their work skills. We know from research that adults learn best in contextualized settings. So whether you're a teacher learning with a literacy coach coming into your classroom, or an executive with a management coach coming into your office, or someone on a factory floor learning a new piece of equipment, we learn best when the learning is contextualized. And this is the push for WIO reauthorization, is to do the funding issues, but also to really push those federal agencies to work together so that local communities and regions can be pushed to work together through their local workforce investment boards, or WIBs. One of the biggest problems with getting adults with low skills into post-secondary education, problem number one is that we continue to allow students to drop out of high school. The high school dropout problem is creating a whole population of new adults with low skills. 1 in 4 do not graduate on time. 10% of young adults under 24 do not have a high school diploma. So they are stuck in low wage, no future jobs, often raising families in poverty. This is unconscionable, that we've got so many young people falling off and not having a way to get back up into education and family supporting economics. So high school dropouts is certainly number one. But there are also other issues that need to be addressed thinking about adults coming into post-secondary. They need affordable college, that's a big issue, and they need the community colleges to be ready for them. We know in our area that the community colleges are bursting at the seams, and yet their budgets are being cut by local and state funders. So we need colleges, we need them affordable. We also need Pell Grants for these adults with low skills so they can afford college. And we see that there are some issues that are specific to different populations, like English and some ESOL classes in college, and childcare, for example. It impacts the low-income adult student much harder than a middle-class adult student, and it particularly impacts single moms. Off-campus childcare is prohibitively expensive, and there are many too few slots on campus for childcare. So that's a real barrier for single moms. And the other issue is low skills. They're coming to college, they may not be prepared. And this is not just adults, but even the kids coming out of high school. Many of our students are coming into post-secondary environments and finding they are not college ready. They're going into remedial classes which are not always effective, and so they get discouraged. So there are many issues helping adults transition into post-secondary. Well, in remedial education, there are some interesting new models coming up to the plate. Jonathan Rivera, who is now the CEO of the University of the District of Columbia Community College, brand new community college, was there at the symposium to talk about some of these models. One of them is compression, which is to offer more of one thing in a tighter time frame. So if I need basic math, it might be better for me to get it all together all at once without being diluted, my attention being diluted by taking other classes. So instead of taking one math class a week and 2 other classes and doing the semester that way, maybe I should just take math and really understand it, focus on it, and get that out of the way. Another model is to contextualize basic skills. So you have a remedial class or tutoring or learning assistance centers that run in parallel to a content and credit-bearing class. So for example, a writing remedial class might run in parallel to one of your intro to psychology classes. And the writing assignments that are given to you for your content class could be the writing assignments that the tutor works with you. So your learning is contextualized, and as I said before, that's very important. Another model is blended learning, where we can put some of the learning online for students. Adult students are juggling many adult responsibilities. They've got childcare, they've got child transportation, they've got house maintenance, they've got their own work to deal with. And being at a class 2 or 3 times a week for an hour or 2 is impossible when you're trying to work a regular job. So if we could put some of the learning online and they could tap in whenever they can squeeze it in, that works very well. But that has to be, especially for low-skilled learners, it has to be supported by some live interaction. They have to know that someone cares and is pushing a little bit with them. And can help them address their learning issues. So it doesn't always have to be face-to-face in a classroom, but it could be an online chat, it could be a telephone call, it could be email, but somebody has to be on the other end of the learning. It's not, you can't just put it up and leave it. The government's job is to support our ladder of opportunity, and as I said earlier, it's broken at the bottom end. We've got people who are unable to access the ladder of opportunity. Something that you hear adult education students say every year at GED graduations all over the country is, I live in a country that gives second chances. I'm so lucky. And the second chance is really a good metaphor for the GED and for adult education. Gretchen Wilson, the country music star and recent GED graduate, said, "I'm so glad I live in a country of second chances" at her Senate testimony and her award for being a literacy advocate last year. It's just a real sense of how this should be working. And yet, only a fraction of adults who are eligible for adult ed services actually come in, register for class, and take classes. So we need to reach out and get more awareness out there of what's available and why people should be upskilling, as the British say. So we're talking about local and regional communities working together, states working and cooperating across regions, federal governments funding adult education. And yet in our economic downturn, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing adult education classes cutting classes, creating longer wait lists, actually shutting their doors. It's painful and it's so short-sighted. We really need to open the access to low-skilled adults and bring them in. And communities and state and federal governments can do that by aligning services and coordinating services, creating partnerships at the local level and then at the state level and then at the federal level. So adults can be supported and move more seamlessly from education to training. And also using the power of technology to get the word out, to help people find where they can take classes, where they can take workforce development classes, and put some learning, as we were talking about, some blended learning online so that people can access it even without having to go to a class.